Okay.
So welcome, and thank you all for joining us tonight on our All Life is Yoga. This is a new series that we have that includes discussions, talks, interviews by various experts in their field, and it's actually being hosted here in Fountain Inn, South Carolina by the LaGrasse Center. I'm Rade, and I'm joined by Vladimir Yatsenko, who is my colleague at the center and also our very esteemed speaker tonight, Lisa Collins. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
And over the past several weeks, our speakers on All Life is Yoga have explored various ways for us to live more harmoniously, not only with ourselves and with others, but as well with nature. So today we're going to continue this journey with Lisa Collins, who will share her knowledge and her wisdom on the webinar called A Plant-Based Natural Approach to Self-Care. And Lisa is a natural health and wellness educator, and she specializes in the healing use of essential oils. So we've hosted Lisa on several occasions in the past when our center was opened. And believe me, she always brings a wealth of information and knowledge to those attending. So I'm sure tonight will be no exception. And as Lisa discusses various aspects of a plant-based natural approach to self-care, she'll be referencing a number of articles and resources that we will make available to you after the webinar this evening. So don't worry about having to write them down or having to ask her for those. We've got a list and we'll immediately send it out. And also, Lisa's very open to any questions that you might have. So she'll be pausing on and off throughout the hour to see if you have any questions, but also feel free to type them in the Q&A box for her. And Lisa, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it. It is a pleasure. So it has been for many years. Well, my name is Lisa Collins, in case they might have missed that. And for many, many years, I have been open-minded more to natural wellness in many ways for lots of personal reasons, and trying to understand root cause and why more and more people are getting sick these days, more so than in the decades past. I noticed a difference in my lifetime, and there's something more to it. So I decided I really wanted to dig in further and do more research and see how I could, not only has it helped me and my family in many ways, I do have my own personal back injuries. And my husband also had some psoriasis and still does, but we manage it very well now with a lot of dietary changes, use of essential oils, and a more plant-based approach. So with that, I want to make sure that I bring this to other people to help them know better wellness, because there was a time where I didn't know all about it until somebody started sharing with me. So I'm connected in health communities, beginning with LaGrasse here, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm also a member of the Holistic Chamber of Commerce with like-minded people in the community, where I also do some webinar. I've done a few online classes, but in-person workshops we've done, of course, since COVID. We've had to put a pause to some of that. And I will be an upcoming contributing wellness writer to the Health and Recovery Guide magazine that is scheduled to launch sometime in late 2021 in the wellness section of the magazine. I'm really looking forward to that. And I believe that the best healthcare is self-care. And I'm in a much better place because of it. Once I committed to being mindful more about my health and what I do and what I eat and stuff like that. And my family's been better off for it as well. So this information today is really meant to empower you with knowledge so that you can be your own active participant in your own lifestyle, developing healthier habits. And we're going to discuss dietary and lifestyle changes together, but make sure that's also along with your medical providers and physicians as well. That is very important, to not do any major changes or implement essential oils or do any changes to your medications. Always consult a physician, especially if you have any health conditions. Okay, so what I've discovered that there is a microbiome that exists, and with that, we are exposed to many things. And I'm going to tell you what that all means in a minute. It's just very interesting. But in today's world, there are a lot of things that are actually kind of dangerous that can affect our health and that contribute to why we get sick easily and struggle emotionally, and why we might not be living to the full wellness and purpose and abundance as we should be. And a lot of times we're willingly exposing ourselves by the things we do, but there's a lot of things that we don't realize we're being exposed to, including our children and pets every day. So, and these things are from the food we eat, the lack of sleep, lack of exercise, our environment, products we use, everyday life. So basically a microbiome is a collective genetic information, a community of organisms, if you will, within our bodies and even outside of our bodies, like bacteria, fungi, viruses that live in an ecosystem, or like our gut. Our gut is an ecosystem. Up to 90%, or approximately 75% of our immune health, our overall immune health, comes from the gut, our digestive system. When I learned those numbers, I was like, wow. And our gut regulates so much genetic information. It's unbelievable. And later on, we're going to get into some other connections, actually called a gut-brain connection. Our organisms and our cells in our gut are extremely important, and only about 10% of it is actually human cell genetics. The rest is the fungi, the bacteria, and everything else, like I had mentioned earlier. So we are going to look to how can we improve the gut, digestion, overall balance. And what we want to do is creating like a homeostasis, which is like an internal biological environment where everything is cool and happy. That's what we want. But there's so many things that happen in our environment and that we do to our bodies that just causes like a train wreck. So what we need to do is seek out root cause. And if we can change our microbiome, because I'm telling you right now, we can change it, we just have to commit. Over 70 million Americans suffer from digestive diseases that are linked to more than 40 diseases. Now, I do have some resources I can share later as far as some of my statistics, if anybody really wanted to know where I got some of this information from, all scientific fact and studied. An unhealthy gut causes, you might have heard, a leaky gut. Like, what's leaking in there? The gut lining has little blocks that fit tightly together like a puzzle, and the gut's going to be healthy. But when the gut is unhealthy and it doesn't get resolved, which we would like it to resolve on its own, but because of the things happening to it, it doesn't always do that. Then they don't fit together, and then the gut will leak toxins and microbes and undigested food particles into the gut, into the abdomen, creating nutrition malabsorptions, inflammation, which is huge because inflammation causes pain, and other intolerances in the body, allergies, autoimmune diseases. The list is real long when we get to that. So what you ingest influences your gut health. So what do you think might cause a leaky gut? Do you have any ideas of a few things you might want to just kind of throw out there that you think might contribute to an unhealthy gut?
Yeah, disbalance, first of all.
Balance?
Yes, disbalance, basically.
Yes, balance would be important. But what do you think?
I was going to say, because the times that I have belly aches, it's typically when I've overloaded the system, too late at night when it can't be digested, and oftentimes, at least for me, too spicy of a food, to an excess. And this comes back to the balance that Vladimir was mentioning. But for me, it's spicy food. Too much spicy food would do it.
And you're right. That's definitely could be a contributor. And eating too late at night, that's something that can definitely happening.
And I would think hereditary too, that some of this is hereditary.
We absolutely have some hereditary. I think it's somewhere around 95% is controllable and not hereditary. And I think 5%, number might be a little higher than 5%, but then that 5% is genetic. So genetic, there is some things we just can't control. We're going to get into some of the controllables and uncontrollables in a minute, but certainly poor diet can damage our intestinal lining. And most importantly, proteins found in unsprouted grains, sugar, and I'll be sharing a article link later that I had wrote about added sugars in particular. And we're going to talk a little bit about insulin resistance and too much sugar shortly as well, because before we can even talk about natural approach and how we're going to make it better, we can't just start doing all of that without understanding what we're doing and to begin with to make the conditions that way. Because ultimately we want to make our bodies be able to function on its own without too much of anything else, because it's supposed to do well on its own. But unfortunately, our modern lifestyle and other things contribute that we might have to give it some help. And there's nothing wrong with a little help, especially if it's from a healthy natural source. A good example of, and dairy products, GMOs and dairy products. It has said sugar, GMO, dairy products. So we're going to get into some of that too. A good example of the insulin resistance I was talking about is, for example, if we eat the bad white flour that's been a big no-no lately in the past 5 years or so, don't eat white bread, only whole grains, and that's absolutely true. But if we eat too much of the bad carbohydrates, especially from like white flour, the breads and the pastas and the cakes and the sweets, our body naturally is supposed to make insulin, which is a hormone for the body, to take the glucose sugar and then convert it to a usable form for our cells to use as energy. But without it, we couldn't survive. But if we have too much, the body isn't using it correctly, then we can have problems like diabetes, unless we will regulate it with synthetic insulin and diet, which millions of Americans are having to do that now. But I wonder if we take a step back and really redo the puzzle, redo what we're doing, we might be able to change some of that. But of course, again, that's something you have to work with your physician with, if you really want to take steps like that, to maybe not have to rely on certain medications anymore. But we do need it sometimes, so don't get off no medications. But there are alternative ways to better health. So anyway, what happens is in problems like getting diabetes, unless we regulate it with the synthetic insulin, if we can't get it regulated on our own, the cells resist it, and then the sugar will store as fat. And then that leads to tired, hungry, a plethora of other problems to come, toxin overload from the foods, the products we use, stress, bacterial imbalance in the gut, and then changes in our gut microbiome. And then where the train wreck I mentioned before, we can have infections, we can have allergies, the immune disease, inflammations, depression, obesity, the list goes on. Now, we need good microbes in our gut, okay, which I'm sure you've heard about. Probiotics, prebiotics, we'll mention a little bit about that in a minute. But we can get the good stuff from the food we eat as well. And when we have good microbes in our gut from natural things, it's going to help us to digest our food properly, support our immune system, detoxify those compounds that are bad, produce the vitamins our body needs, because we need to give it what it needs, metabolize drugs, prevent bad bacteria, influence our metabolism to do what it needs to do, control our brain health, body weight, and so much more. And probably even more that we don't even understand yet. This research is relatively new, considering the past few decades of realizing how bad things are getting for people's health. And it does have a lot to do with our food and other things. So with a good prebiotic or probiotic and enzymes and supplement, I do have a segment on that later. And if we don't have time for that, I have some good resources for people to do further, just to look at that. All the information's there for them if they want to know a little bit more about how we can help our bodies with supplements. Plant-based is the key word. So there are things we can control and there are things we cannot. So if you would like to take a few minutes, or if anybody, whether you write it down or just think about it, write down a couple things. And you had verbalized it before, the things that you feel that you might be exposed to. Now, not just the food, what else in your environment that might be exposing you or harming your digestive system and your current lifestyle? I will say for me, diet, every day I try to be mindful of my choices, because that's the hardest thing to do. We all like to cheat, and, once in a while is okay. Just can't do it all the time. And even stress, overwhelming myself every day, maybe with some of the things and tasks that I want to do. And stress can really mess a body up, even if it's good stress. So that's where we're going to get into some of the things that can help stress. You have any idea what that might be? You want to take a guess?
Essential oils.
Well, besides essential oils, yes, there's an oil for just about everything. I can tell you that. But exercise, meditation. So we're going to get into some other things that, definitely can help us to control some of the uncontrollables, if you will. But being disciplined and committing to change is the most important thing. And when I'm disciplined and committed, as I've been for many years now, more so than ever, I do see a difference. I have not gotten sick as much. I have not purchased or had to use over-the-counter medications as often. Maybe once a year, I've had a situation where I needed modern medicine, less doctor visits. So that saves me money too. So it's quite interesting. Coincidence? I think not. Okay, so we can control nutrition. We can control exercise. Stress, we could do our best to control stress, but we can, exercise is important. Walk away, breathe. Medications we can control with our doctor, of course. Genetically modified plants, we're going to get into that. That's actually a controllable to a point. I'll explain why in a minute. Because then there's antibiotic-fed foods we do not want. Now, you had mentioned Rade before, genetics, definitely. If you are born vaginally, they actually say that you are more, could be more prone to having uncontrollable things happening to you that, there's just genetics are set a certain way. And some people are just more prone to allergies or, certain conditions. Even if you're breastfed, your age, certainly as we age, things start to degenerate. So we need to, like, for instance, our melatonin levels drop. So we need to do something to help get our melatonin levels up. What's in our water? If you're having city water treatment, water is being treated with something that people don't even realize is happening in an unnatural way. So like something we can't control, like if somebody, like fossil fuels in the air, I'm so grateful for a car now that has that little button that it's got the recycle, like all of a sudden the exhaust is coming in your car and you don't want to breathe that in. You're like, I'm going to die. So, and it's terrible, but there's just only so much emission control we have. And I wish there was more, and we may get there someday, but maybe not for all of us and now. But hopefully we continue to work that way for future generations. Somebody smoking right next to you, that's another uncontrollable, unless, you really walk away, but sometimes you're exposed to it and it's there. And also lack of availability, finances, and companies that are dishonest with their practices and their labeling. That's huge. We're going to get into that in a minute as well. So it's not easy, but your quality of life really can depend on starting to become more aware and paying attention, because there are many synthetic chemicals that are being put into foods, over-the-counter prescription medications, personal care products like deodorant, shampoo, room sprays, cleaning products, the list goes on there, clothing, bedding, and the list goes on. So closest to nature is what we want to try to do. So before I move on to the key culprits of something that's in the water that I was talking about a minute ago, does anybody have any questions?
Now, I just hope that when you address this question or issue of water, if you could also maybe speak to those of us that buy bottled water with electrolytes in it, and what your thoughts are, if that really solves the problem or not when you buy, purchase bottled water in general, and then, some of these higher premium bottles that they have.
Okay. All right. And I will do my best to remember that in a second. All right. Well, the GMOs basically are the genetically modified organisms that were actually introduced in the 1990s to make food bigger. Like, do you ever see those giant apples in the store? That's not really natural. Most cases, but now I've grown some organic veggies that were pretty big too. So, but for the most part, unfortunately, a very large percentage, I think close to 90% of the food is genetically modified to make it more colorful, and it makes it more disease resistant, increasing crop yield, which I understand we need to feed a lot more people. So we have to do some certain things we have to do. But my favorite title of SAD, Standard American Diet, GMOs are contained in the majority of the food we eat. Roundup is the number one problem, which obviously now they're trying to ban it and eliminate it. But the problem is it's a little bit too late. It's got glyphosate in it. I don't know if I pronounced that appropriately, but the overuse of Roundup in commercial and residential have caused crops to become resistant to it, which is what they want to get more of a yield. But the unfortunate thing is they even recommend you're supposed to wear protective suits, but then we're eating the food. Hello. So
Yeah. I have a question on that, Lisa,
understood.
because you've been out to La Grasse. We've got many acres there, and Roundup has been used many. We don't use it anymore, but even as frequently as a couple years ago, we were
we
using
used to
it.
too on our
Does that
lot of
stay
practice.
in the soil? And so, if you're going to plant a garden or something, you need to really take this into consideration.
I would definitely take it into consideration. Thank you. Because, the close proximity, the more prevalent it probably will be. What we have to hope for is the sediment in the rock, you get the groundwater, it's going to eventually dilute. And that is true, but it's still there and there still could be a buildup. I would certainly consider, if you're not familiar with your soil and what's been treated and tested around it, I would consider having it tested before you planted a garden. And then the more natural stuff you add to your garden year after year after year, it's going to get better and better and better. Where I live with a lot of acreage, there was a soybean farm. Only God knows the practices that they might have done here. But now we've been here 25 years and we've done, the first few years we did the Roundup thing on the fence lines. But now it's been, 7, 8, 9 years, but we still didn't use it like by our garden and everything. Cause we're like, oh my gosh, it's going to get into our food. Like I was like, you could just smell the chemicals. I just knew, you just get that vibe. It didn't smell right, So, but the shame of it is the overuse of Roundup has caused crops to become resistant, like I had said, and they are seeping into our water supply, and they're found in the water systems. And a lot of bottled companies that water bottle companies, water from, wherever they can get it from. And if it's not been tested that the glyphosate is in there, you could be getting a small amount. Now, it's not a lethal amount, because otherwise, everybody would be dropping like flies, let's face it. But there is traces of it in so many things. And unfortunately, in America, we are the world's biggest GMO lovers, compared to so many other countries, astounding, like 80, 90% usage to 10, 15, 20% usage, if you will. We've used 18.9 billion pounds of product since 1974. And I have links to share with everybody about this whole genetically modified and list of chemicals and stuff. Okay, so let me move a little bit more forward here. The highest GMO crops: soybeans, cotton, corn, and sugar beets. So if we don't think these chemicals are not affecting us, they are, because there was a time we weren't using chemicals. And although people didn't live as long, it was because we didn't have the technology for surgeries that are simple surgeries and simple, like a cold, common cold even, that we could have saved a lot of lives. There's over 200 chemicals found in a newborn baby's umbilical cord to this day. And the genetic modifications of all of these plants to create higher yields are just foods we're eating. So that's why it's important to start paying attention, because the plants tolerate the herbicides. We don't. Maybe for a time, but at some point it's not going to be good for us. And with that much chemicals going in our body, from that tomato, from that piece of bread, and then from that deodorant, and then from that moisturizer, because these chemicals are in everything that's produced in our bodies, and even medicines administered, causes hormone disruption and in our endocrine systems, even in the growing, developing child. And that's where it can even begin in the womb, because what the mother ingests, so is the baby. And when it affects our endocrine system, that's pretty much how part of our whole body works as well. And, that can change even sexual dysfunction and reproduction. It's alarming. And the side effects that we feel, like nausea, headache, fatigue, people are living with that like it's normal. It's not normal. We shouldn't be like that all the time, tired all the time. But these toxins build up in our body. And basically, when that happens, it's interrupting and disrupting the microbiome of our systems and interfering. And that is called bioaccumulation. It is a buildup, a chemical buildup that builds up over time. And I like to call it a slow poisoning. And our bodies just can't break down some of these chemicals because they're not natural. Our bodies do not recognize them. They don't know what to do with them. So they attack our good microbes, our good cells, and cause, all of the problems people are having today. So what can we do to start lessening our exposures? When we read our labels and know our sources, now we can't be calling every company and how do you do this? How do you do that? But believe me, there is a lot that you can do. I've researching, you could find so much about a company and a little bit more about what they believe and what, not everybody tells the truth, but you can get that vibe and you can see their packaging. You can, call the company and ask questions. And I'm going to be sharing a link with everybody about some chemicals that are processed with the synthetics and what to watch out for, because some of them are downright alarming and they should have been banned a long time ago and they're still in the food products, propylene glycol, sodium lauryl sulfate, just to name a few, fragrance, talc, triclosan. There's a whole list. And in this list, it also explains a little bit more about them. Formaldehyde, artificial dyes, the red 40, the yellow 6, all those numbers, they will mess you up. And the kids and young kids having ADHD and all these other autism spectrum problems, a lot of people are starting to think about links to and have already changed their kids' diets from some of these influx of these artificial dyes and preservatives and high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. And these kids are making 360 turnaround. But the thing is you have to commit and you have to have your family commit. And cheating would have to be very rare because then it triggers. And some people are more sensitive than others. So I'm also going to be sharing a link later, a book resource, The Dangers of High Fructose Corn Syrup, called The Sugar Fix by Dr. Richard Johnson. And on the artificial dyes, I have a video by Rebecca Bevins that I want to share on the effects of artificial food dyes and her experience with her child. And it's very moving to watch and makes you really think about what we're putting in our bodies. But these things affect adults too, but they might affect children more because they're still growing. And but there are alternatives to natural dyes. So when you read your labels, beets, carrots, spinach, pumpkin, berries, turmeric powder, saffron powder, paprika, these could all be natural ways to color, like the chips. They don't have to put red 40, which can have somebody have anger issues or something, or violent tendencies and brain fog and all these other crazy things, or focus the attention deficit is,
So Lisa, let me just make sure I understand what you're saying. So you're saying these dyes, the red whatever and the yellow whatever, these are being used even in our spices. And you said turmeric or fruits. What were some of the others that you mentioned?
Well, some of the stuff I was mentioning was some of the natural dyes that we want to look for on the ingredient labels and see, like we can pick up packages and don't always be fooled by the front. Like natural, nature's best. You go on the back and it's high fructose corn syrup in it. That's not nature's best. So, it takes a few extra minutes, but you glance, you become familiar. If the list is this long, put it down. And truthfully, if it's in a box, we probably shouldn't even be buying it technically. If it's either, there's a Jillian Michaels, I think I'm going to get to have a note somewhere. She's a fitness person. She doesn't come from a mother or have, oh gosh, where was that? It was so funny. I'll get to it, but then don't eat it, or grow out of the ground, then don't eat it. But certainly there are a lot of companies making good changes now, which you can see. And so we just have to really start learning how to shop more wisely, but it's not just in the food we eat. And yes, organic as much as possible. And even organic, they still allow X amount of chemicals, but it's still a better choice. Just do the best you can, wash everything and everything like that, and look for sales. And the more we create the demand for it by buying it, the more the prices are going to come down. Everybody, I think, has already even seen that with a lot of healthier choices. Prices are getting better. And even the same thing with the grass-fed beef and stuff, because you really try to avoid all those antibiotics and the conventional meats as best you can. And we're going to get into a little bit of that later, the better ways to eat. But keeping in mind, it's also in our skincare, personal care items, toothpaste, mouthwash, intimacy items. Just so many things to think about, that we are really being bombarded with chemicals that is creating that bioaccumulation to destroy our gut and then overall our health and wellness. And
I have one kind of question on this
Yes.
point, which is kind of bothering me now for the first time. When the vaccination was created, they had FDA approval. They had to do testing for these chemicals to introduce into our system, whatever it is. Every medicine requires certain approval of FDA and so on, but not the products for the food, neither for the food nor for the care of the body. So they can introduce any chemicals from their labs saying that they are safe because they never tested them on the longer run. They tested them on the short run on the animals or something like they do with creams. And then we do not know what would be the result of a long period of time. So they are never approved by the FDA. If they would be approved that these chemicals are harmless to our system, then it's okay. But
you would think, and it would hope, and that's why we can't put our health in the hands of just the FDA. There's certain things we're going to want to follow and pay attention to. We have to do our research because there's a lot of things being left, undone and not changed and not regulated. The unregulation is not good, and trying to find companies that are just taking matters into their own hands and making sure that they're producing stuff that's better quality, less ingredients, more natural ingredients. Those are the things you just want to look for, whether it be on the label. Take 5 minutes. We have the whole wonderful world of Google it. I wish, like, my kids when they were younger with school, I'm like, Google it. I could teach it, but it was wonderful because what you want to do is find common ground. That was where I was going to get to next, because are they safe enough? Or how much chemicals are in the food? We can't control everything. We can only do so much, but even every little bit will make a difference in your health. Finding common ground on, like, if you Google something and, let's just say about one of the artificial dyes or something, and you find 5 or 6 health resources all saying the same thing, and they're doctors, for instance, odds are they've done the research and they got the scientific stuff. And I've seen some of these articles, these scientific studies are like 3 miles long. I'll start reading it, and of course, half of it I don't understand because it's real technical, medical terms. But studies have been done, and they just, some of the changes aren't being made, that the negative effects of some of these chemicals in the food. So reading labels is important. And one quick thing, the sodium lauryl sulfate, I really wanted to mention this, was originally made to use remove grease from car engines. So, and then they put that in like shampoo. Okay. So these things can be damaging to our skin. And even the American College of Toxicology will say some of these things are considered safe. Not everything is. That's why I'm going to share that link later from the Environmental Working Group with the list of the toxic chemicals that have already been studied to not be good for us. So if you see it on a product, I would recommend trying to steer away from that. And they even say that if they're in low concentrations, under 1%, that we would be safe. But some sodium lauryl sulfates are as high as 30% in concentrations, I have found. So, that's where the regulation comes in, and that's what we need to worry about. I'm not okay with being poisoned. I'm probably still being poisoned in a slow way, and we can't freak out about it because, otherwise, then we get stressed and then we made our problems even worse. But there are a lot of things we can do and choices we can make, including making real food on our own. As much as possible. So we'll get to that in just a minute too. So I started doing a concept kind of cool, like ditch and switch, so I'm no longer buying this product because this is no good, but, I found this alternative. I remember even finding, if it was Nature Promise or something, in one of my local supermarkets years ago. My kids love Pop-Tarts, and they had all the dyes and all the preservatives. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I found the other Pop-Tart brand, and it was like 30 cents more. And it had the artificial beets for the coloring and everything. And they still look pretty cool. And guess what? They tasted good. And they were fine with it, you know? So there are things we can do, you know? The ice pops for the kids. You know, I talk about the kids. I mean, my kids are grown now. They're both in college, but they're loaded with so much junk. There's so many ways to make natural ice pops now, even with just juice. You know, if you find a good 100% juice, try to get one a little low in sugar if you can. We're going to get into the sugar thing, but okay, so there are lots of things that can disrupt, and I'm going to pass on through all the chemical stuff because we're going to share resources later. And carcinogens also. I'm going to have a list of carcinogens, known carcinogens to avoid, and chemicals. Okay, so let's see where I'm at here that I think is going to be really important, because I do want to skip. I have a lot of stuff on the research and the details of stuff.
I think, Lisa, too, you know, it's not just like you said earlier, it's not just the food you digest, but what are you putting on your skin? The lotion you put on your skin, the makeup that you put on your face, the hair dye that you're using, or the shampoo, as you mentioned, all this stuff gets absorbed through the skin and into the body. So,
and it does. And then when they say over 200 chemicals a day, it's true, because if you look at the amount of ingredients that are maybe in your deodorant, then the amount of ingredients that are in your shampoo, then the amount of ingredients in your toothpaste, and then the amount of ingredients in the 3 different meals a day you have, depending on what sources they're from, you start adding up all those chemicals, you may be getting some of the same thing that's bad 7 or 8 times. So there goes your increased percentage on that chemical, and so on and so forth. And like you were talking about the FDA ruling, Vladimir, too, I have a note here about the antibacterial soaps, and I have a link I'm going to share with that as well later. It was alarming that they lead to antibiotic-resistant bacteria and having negative hormonal effects on the body. So, yeah, just use soap. You know, we're going crazy with the hand bacteria. Oh, yeah, it'll kill some of the germs on your hands, but it's also doing some other bad things to our bodies.
There was we had a presentation from a biologist, biochemist, who said that our antibacterial approach, all this penicillin, when we discovered penicillin, we disturbed the whole balance with bacteria with which we lived for millions of years, and we made a peace with them. But now we disturbed the balance, we killed the bacteria, and now we have viruses coming in. Viruses were not so common before. They were only bacteria before. But viruses were very rare. They didn't have a niche in our system. Now there's empty space because everywhere antibacterial, antibiotics.
Exactly. And we need to get back in the dirt is what we need to do. Like babies under 1 year of age, in fact, that have studies done, they played in the dirt, had decreased risk in asthma. Dirt is not our enemy. Our enemy, chemicals are. So yeah, cleanliness is important. You know, I mean, if you don't take a bath for a few days, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, depending, you know, you have to wash your hands still, but use soap, don't go over the top. We need the microbes that come from the earth and all that stuff. Our bodies need that. Our bodies need to understand it, because otherwise, if we mask it and block it with all these chemicals, it's causing this mass confusion is what's really happening in there. And then it's attacking because it doesn't understand what it is, and then it's making us sick. It's really almost it's kind of a simple concept if you think about it. You know, we need to just simplify a little bit more, you know, and not over the top with the antibacterial. Absolutely. Obesity is another big issue, and I have a lot of information on that. But that certainly does change the gut microbiota. But if we start switching to a more mindful diet and eliminating some of the bad fats and sugars and things, which I can touch on that in a little bit too, then, you know, and we can decrease weight gain to a more reasonable level, that will solve a lot of problems for people as well. Because just being obese alone, they can actually have 50% fewer gut bacteria because of it, and that's a shame.
But can I ask something on this also there? Because Ayurveda has the concept, and I kind of ask also Radhe to help out. Ayurveda has a very simple concept that you have to keep your fire in the stomach burning fully, and it will digest everything, it will burn everything out. If it is not totally burning, as it were, then it leaves residues or something which is not totally digested, and it goes into the system through intestine. There it becomes this kind of toxin, creates all the problems and 70% of diseases, as you mentioned. So the whole idea in the Ayurveda is to keep that stomach running well, yeah, and
With
giving
good
food,
stuff.
yeah, giving in such a way that it can digest the
Right.
amount it can digest, no more. Yeah, otherwise there will be creation of this ama, or that residue, or that toxin.
That's
And
right.
that's how they look at it. They didn't think about chemicals yet, but
Mm-hmm.
they thought about the digestive process more.
Which is where you have to start, and then you start to think about, okay, well, now you're doing all this the right way, right? And then maybe eating right, but then what is it that you're eating? What's in that food? And then what are you putting on your body? So there's other things that are going to add to the problems, if you will. If you're having problems, you have to start to find that root cause. Like I said in the beginning, you might have to kind of process of elimination. Why am I have high blood pressure? All right, that could definitely be genetic, partially, and there is age. But what am I eating in my diet that could be causing my blood pressure to go high? And is it a high salt diet? I mean, salt content is something else you have to consider. And even being an obese causes more cognitive problems as well, and could even lead to Alzheimer's. So there's a thing I wanted to talk about that I actually recently only started doing myself, and I've heard a lot about it, because there's so many diets out there, and diet this, diet that, and I think you just need to eat real food, eat in moderation, only eat when you're hungry. There's just a lot of simple things, and intermittent fasting is a way to consider that would be a little bit safer than like these longer day fasts. And some people do that for religious reasons and for many reasons that we can do fasting, certainly with your physician, never on your own judgment as far as what's the best way to fast and not fast. And it has to be done with caution. But a good way to do it that could be a little safer that I have found is just doing only eating in an 8-hour window stretch. So if you get up at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, you want to have your coffee or something like that, or water, and then just try not to eat. You might get that little bit of hungry around 9, 10 o'clock, but just hang out and don't eat. Just drink another glass of water or something, or have a cup of tea. And then around noon, go ahead and have your lunch, and of course we'll talk about the best ways to eat. We want to eat pretty healthy, and then a couple hours later, you can have your dinner, at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock. You can even eat 3 times in that span, but as long as it's healthful, then by 8 o'clock, that's it. You shut it down. So from 12 to 8, you can eat, you don't want to eat, too much large portions, but you can eat, 2 meals at least, I would say. And then if you stop to realize after 8 o'clock, I know sometimes you might get the nighttime munchies, but, just ignore it and have a glass of water. Once or twice a week, don't ignore it. Go ahead and have your little light snack. But if you can actually let your body rest for that, 14, 15 hours from 8 o'clock to noon the next day, your body is giving it a chance to just heal, relax, and do what it needs to do. Because if you keep on putting food, it's got to keep working and keep trying to digest and and then if there's chemicals in there too. So a little bit of fasting is not a bad thing. So if you skip breakfast, they always just say, don't skip breakfast, most important part of the day. You should take your vitamins if you're taking vitamins. I don't believe that it's super necessary. I'm finding with more research that it's healthier to eat a little less than eat a little more. If you're really that hungry, then have a banana in the morning, or that one apple, or, a handful of nuts, or, just one egg, even. The egg is really healthy for you. And then nothing until later on in the afternoon. So there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's just, I know that if you do a little bit of intermittent fasting, it could be a good way to maintain your weight detox your body a little bit, clear your mind. Because when you get the junk out, you start to see a little bit, think a little bit more clearly. So, with that said, let's see. What else?
But I
Good
also
question.
do think that you start to see a little more clearly too.
You know what? You're probably right.
These toxins can accumulate into
can.
like dark spots in the eye, and
That's true.
when you fast an extended period of time, you'll actually see these black dots. So it's toxins releasing through
Like
the
the
very
floaters.
organs and stuff. Yeah. So you'll see better, smell better,
Hear better.
hear better.
You're absolutely
There
right.
you go.
And just feel better overall, but here's the thing too, it's not going to happen overnight. It could be several weeks or even a couple of months before you really start to feel the difference or notice a difference, because, your body needs time to flush out those toxins and start to adapt to this newer, healthy way that it hasn't been familiar with for a while. And sticking with it, of course, is the hardest thing, but,
And I think since Vladimir brought up Ayurveda, the approach in Ayurveda is gentle, right? Gentleness. We don't want to shock the body and go into an extensive fasting period where the body can't handle the release of all these toxins. So it's slow, modest, over time, patience, and gentleness to the body.
Yeah. And I think that's brilliant. That's exactly, I think, how it should be. I guess, and to wrap up this part of this segment with the gut-brain connection, which I think is pretty interesting. The digestive system is sometimes referred to by experts as our body's second brain. So like that saying, be mindful what you're eating. I just thought that was kind of neat. But we have neurotransmitters in our brain that communicate between our brain and our body as well. So they're responsible for our heart, our lungs, regulation and breathing, gut digesting, as well as our mood, concentration, and weight. So there is a gut-brain connection. I wish I knew exactly how it works, but it does. It's connected, which is just even more interesting. But most neurotransmitters are formed in the gut. So before going into the blood and then finally into the brain. It's a crazy connection. So, but go ahead.
Just on the topic that somebody from our biochemist explained, that when we start eating, which it goes into the tongue has receptors which are immediately indicating what is coming in.
Right.
So what is coming into the system. So all the system, our
light switches get turned on.
Immune cells, they're ready to jump in because they already got the signal from these receptors, the biggest number of receptors under the tongue and around the tongue, which communicate through saliva, communicate these to the brain and to the whole spinal cord, where the immune system's cells are produced from the soft brain. Incredible.
It is. And that part of the brain there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus, and that's where the brain actually will regenerate cells, or called neurogenesis is what that part of it's called. And with that ability to regulate the cells, regulates the microbiome in our gut. So it's like, I don't know, it's really cool stuff. I actually, in school, math, I was a C, not good in math. History, B, science, I got an A. I love science. I always love science. I just find it kind of fun that this was kind of the stuff I'm into now. And another interesting thing about the hippocampus and how it regulates emotions and long-term memory and spatial relationships, which is our ability to understand and recognize and discern objects like this is a glass. Like, to even understand that is a big deal. And how we receive information in our environments. So you got to think motor skills. And for some people that gets cut off with different, the autoimmune spectrum, autism and stuff like that. Even just to drink out of to drink out of a straw could be very difficult, because that spatial relationship has been disconnected potentially by chemicals or something that's not right, but there could be things that might be able to change to improve that. And I know there's lots of studies going on, and boy, I hope that things like that get better. And I do have a girlfriend that has completely changed her son's diet, who was diagnosed with autism, and this type of direction that we're going to be talking about, the natural approach and the eating, we've already started discussing and stuff like that, and other things we can be doing. And her son has done quite a 360 himself. He's now a young man in his 20s. And he even knows when he cheats, even at a party, if he had a cupcake with red dye on it or something, and he gets like messed up, and he can feel it. He's like, oh my goodness. And he knows what he has to watch out for and stay away from, because it changes his entire way of just everything focusing and thinking and doing. But when that doesn't end, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And the disability gets worse. So, all right.
I have a question about the indigestion. Indigestion is the biggest kind of issue from the Ayurvedic point of view. Most probably, if these preservatives and these chemicals are meant to protect or to keep up with the fruit alive for so long, not to interact with other bacteria and other, it is those chemicals are actually creating indigestion in a way. They are not allowing the food to be totally and easily digested by the system. So because they are there to preserve as long as possible those fruits. I just got this idea from, and that could be the bigger issue because it creates a lot of toxins. Mm-hmm. Not so much maybe even chemicals. Chemicals are taken into the to throw out from the system. Maybe I'm just thinking scientific.
It might be part of it, but yeah, there's so much going on. And even like this other thing I had come across with just one more brief touch on autism. Research has been done that foods containing casein, which is a protein in milk, has contributed to some issues with it. They still need more data, but they're really looking into it. So they feel like there's other things they might be able to do to change the type of milk they might be drinking. That might be something, but balancing carbohydrates and sugars has been very helpful for people with ADHD. And autism spectrum. And there's so much to it. That's not even what my thing today. And I'll tell you, I just start going on tangents. I start looking at something else. I want to find, I just want to keep seeing what I can find out and learn, because there's so much to learn.
Lisa, you had, I just saw a question pop up from Eric. You had mentioned earlier, which I was actually happy to hear, that if you're not hungry in the morning, don't eat. Ayurveda says you should eat in the morning, but some people, the digestive fire isn't strong enough and ready to digest. So Eric had a question here about your comment. You've mentioned that do not eat much, even for breakfast, for example, only one egg. However, I've heard brain needs food. In the morning, we need to work, and brain needs to be sharp. Any comment on that? So this is, again, whether, the big breakfast or something, healthy for breakfast is good, or just wait till midday or,
well, again, brunch. What I would say to that, honestly, if you are hungry, then you should eat, because then your body is telling you it needs something. But if you're really not that hungry, I would just let it go for a couple hours, because then your body is fine then and at rest. But if you're hungry, then go for the 2 eggs and add some sauteed vegetables and, a slice of whole grain toast. Just 1 egg. I was saying, if you really have to have something, or a banana, and a couple days a week, I could, just have a small yogurt or something, and I'm good. And then there's some days where I want the turkey sausage, I want the eggs, I want the full breakfast, and there's some mornings I'll actually skip it. So I just kind of do what my body tells me, but never anything in too much excess, or like you were even saying, not too long of fasting, because then you can get into other problems, but yeah, our brain needs food, our bodies need food. So, but if you're not hungry, don't eat, meaning then you're not hungry, your body probably don't need anything yet, So I go, what? I am really hungry. I'm going to go eat, I could eat, but I could wait. I'll wait a little while.
Sometimes we are hungry, not stomach, not the body is hungry. It's something else is hungry. Yes. For some.
Or visual, you smell something or you see something, Diet is also known to affect irritable bowel syndrome. That's another whole thing. High fiber fruits and vegetables can help with that. And that's another whole segment. But there's just so much about the gut microbiome and all of these problems people are having. So there are certain diets that you should consider researching for individual autoimmune that you might be having. So, but I think the contributing factors causing those autoimmune is maybe watching certain things to start to heal the problem that you've already created because the damage is already done by eliminating more toxins from your diet and looking at your labels, understanding the food that you're buying, maybe researching your companies a little bit more on the website. And I do use some products from Young Living. They don't sell a whole lot of food, but personal care products, essential oils, they have a whole line of supplements. They have the Seed to Seal. That's phenomenal. I have links for that too later. That's one of the companies that I like. There's several out there, but that's one that they just have top-notch standards in their products that I really feel like I can trust. So I'm going to also share in a link in a little while, because I know we're going to have to start thinking about our potentially a halfway point here, because I have so much information to share. And we might consider doing a part 2 to this, so we can really get into now the other side is the side that is where no more bad news. We all know now what the gut microbiome is about and the things that can affect us. I have such wonderful information here that I want to be able to move forward with all the good things we can do now and how we can make it better, and then some recipes and a little bit about some of the food we should consider eating and diet and exercise and a little bit with sleep and stuff like that. And I have one more, another link. I'm thinking we might share half the links. If we're going to do that, I might share half the links for tonight's participants, and then we'll share the other half after the second night so they don't get ahead to links that they may not know what that was relevant for in discussion. And the one other link I'll be sharing tonight is sugar, called The Sugar Sacrifice. It was an article I did, and it was about added sugars, which is another culprit. And that could bring more insight to thinking about parts of our diet and how we're eating. But in a nutshell, if our bodies aren't processing things properly, an overload of anything, especially if it's not from a natural source, we're in trouble.
Could you post a link into the chat box? So
she has tons of them, Vladimir. That's why we decided that we're going to do a separate handout, because otherwise you're constantly looking. But it's anybody that registered for this will do.
Oh, and if we could, do you think we could maybe go about 10 minutes over?
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to say, so, even Lisa, if you think in order to get through your other half, it's maybe 20 or 25 minutes, we can keep going, whatever is easiest for you. If you want to do a part 2 one evening this week, we can do that. Or if you want to kind of just keep moving through it.
I don't mind keep going.
Okay.
And then
let's do it, because then it'll be all together. Yeah, it's all together, and then I can email it out to everybody that regustered along with the
all
link.
at once. And that sounds great. Yeah, I'm totally good with it. So hopefully we'll, maybe 7:30-ish. I guess we'll just go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one other thing here that could be a neat thing that we can do, is signing some petitions. And I actually signed a few recently that I came across, and I'm going to share links with that as well. And nobody has to sign anything, but they can take a look at it and see if it's something they'd like to. But like, for instance, legislation is being considered on banning the spread of fluorocarbons, PFASs. They're plastics that don't break down, which could be in the drinking water bottles, perhaps, which if you've noticed, some drinking water bottles are starting to say no PFAS on them, all these different names. I have to look them up to give you the exact definition of each label. But this the different kinds of plastics that they're recycling, which is a good thing, but the plastic bottle, but then these can leach into our water. So I probably, I use a steel water bottle, and we actually have a Berkey. That was personal choice. And then we have well water, which has been tested to be pretty good, but I just use that and filter it. But even, a good filtered water, and a water bottle, like your own water from your faucet. If, your city water may be better than the bottled water. That's one thing I haven't researched, like which water bottles would be which one would be better versus others, but that would definitely be a good thing to, make a note of and see. I'll see what I could find out about that, because I know there are some that are professed to be better, but I would like to research to see why they would be better. Okay, so I'm going to share those links later on. And okay, so here's some of the things you could do. Find out more about your own company and their suppliers. If it's a local company, if it's a big company, it doesn't matter. You can go to their website, you can make some phone calls, you can find out a little bit about their practices. You can even, if they're local in your area, you can even ask if you can visit. If they say you can't, then they're hiding something. You want a company that's more open with their, disclosure, their information available to you and how they do things with production. Becoming familiar with the commonly used bad ingredients, which I'm going to share that list later, like I said, in the links. And that's at the environmental working group, which is really helpful. I've become more and more familiar with the chemicals names that are definitely no-nos. Cooking your own food, because you know what you're putting into it as far as additives, salt, not too much salt, sugar, none, so if you're just using fresh tomatoes to make a sauce. Now, when you buy jarred tomato sauce, just look at your labels, because they'll add a whole lot of sugar in there sometimes, and that's not necessary. And sugar's not good. Too much sugar is not good. You want to eat food that mostly comes from a plant or a tree, fresh fruits and veggies. Choosing more alkaline-based foods to help keep your pH balancing from acidic foods, because when your body is high in acid, that also is going to cause a lot of digestive issues and reflux and autoimmune skin problems. If in eating meat, if you choose to eat meat, definitely less fatty. Now, we do need some fat, but don't eat a lot of it. Again, too much of anything is not good. Moderation is the key. You want leaner meats, leaner fish, and typically not so much larger than a deck of cards. We don't want that big old piece of steak, but, once in a while, perhaps. But, if you did that on a daily basis, that's too much for your body to digest properly, to handle. And then of course, you're adding more calories and more fat things, too much of stuff you don't need. You want to fill your plate with more vegetables and more healthier type stuff. As far another thing we can do is looking for the plant-based products, getting into the more natural approach, particularly in everyday use areas, like your laundry detergent, your dish detergent, your bathroom cleaners. And I'm starting to see more companies putting out plant-based, derived from natural ingredients. So the more that we can do that, the better off we're going to be. And I know there's a few of the companies out there that are starting to do that. And I also know that Young Living is one that's really good with their cleaning products and stuff like that, because it's derived with a lot of essential oils, because they have amazing abilities to antimicrobial and cleaning, like cinnamon bark and clove and lemon all have natural abilities to clean. So, and plant-based will have safer ingredients all around. You can even do some of your own, make your own cleaning products at home. People use vinegar and baking soda. Just even hitting a Google search on DIY your own bathroom cleaner, natural cleaner, they're everywhere. There's so many recipes that you can try. I use a tub scrub with baking soda and vinegar, and then I use a thieves cleaner, which is essential oil based with cinnamon bark and lemon and clove, and it smells wonderful. So it's like my own soft scrub, but it's all natural. So I'm not sitting there like, oh, well, I'm trying to clean either. I'm getting aromatherapy at the same time. And I'm going to have a little bit more on that later. Using a wool dryer ball. I bet you a lot of people didn't think about those dryer sheets all loaded with toxic chemicals. And we're just putting more of them on our clothes in the dryer after they came out of the washing machine with more chemicals on it. It's like, oh my gosh, it smells kind of good. After a while, you get away from it. And then you go back and you smell certain other brands and you're like, whoa, the fragrance, it's just not real. It's not real. And therefore, your body's not going to understand what it is, and it's going to mess you up. So like taking wool dryer balls, and you can get them anywhere online, and a few drops of essential oil on that, and throw it into your dryer, and that's it. Or even select a size paper towel, and you can make up a linen spray, and just douse up the paper towel real good with a few extra drops, and then throw there's a natural dryer sheet for you. Using a diffuser, I have one behind me there, with essential oils is another great way to purify the air in your home. There's tons of essential oils you can choose from that will be specific on for what uses they would be, whether you're looking to boost your mood, create a little more focus, calm you down, help you with sleep, purify the air because somebody just fried a hamburger in the other room. So there's lots of things you could do there. The plugins, the room sprays are creating an environment of toxins in our homes. And then for our pets and our small children running around barefoot, we walk barefoot. Carpet cleaners. There's so much to think about that the chemicals. So if you can use like a diffuser instead of the room sprays, and instead of scented candles, that's another huge toxins being brought into people's homes. You can buy, I wish I had it in front of me right now. It's called a Fluorocarbons bottle, and you can get them on many different essential oil accessory websites and stuff. And it's a spray bottle. Instead of a traditional spray bottle, it's got the aerosol where it goes shh, and I fill it up with water, a tablespoon of witch hazel, low alcohol content, and then 30, 40 drops of some of my favorite scents of essential oils, lemon, cinnamon bark, peppermint, and there's my room spray, bathroom spray. And that's so much safer and healthier to do. So taking the time is going to be worth it, because once you start deciding, and you can't switch everything in one day, but once you start deciding, okay, I'm going to get rid of my dish detergent and I'm going to switch to this, or I'm going to start using this, I'm not going to do the scented candles anymore. I actually purchased an unscented candle one time from a popular candle company, and I started to burn it, and I added in, while it melted down, some essential oils that I liked in there to help give it a scent. So I know that was a little bit safer thing to do. But something you want to take your time, one thing at a time. But after a few months of doing this, you'll find that you're in this new vibe of doing things and you're going to feel good about it because you're doing so many healthier things, and it's going to make a difference. And truthfully, as far as the budget goes, it's really not that much more expensive to switch to a healthier. In fact, I think sometimes it's actually less expensive, because we are, maybe you could buy some things that are already done and maybe cost a little more, but I'm already seeing things come down in price in a lot of areas. But making your own stuff, like I'll make my own hand sanitizer. I mean, this definitely would be less money than buying the store-bought, and it smells just as good. And I will put in the 65% rubbing alcohol if I want to go for a higher germ kill rate. But I really try to avoid that whole antibacterial concept. I have rollers for sleep. I have rollers for pain because I have a torn rotator cuff. I have herniated discs in my back. For digestion, I make my own little tummy rollers. Everybody's going to get a couple recipes of a few of these in the links in the email at some point. Very simple to make, a few minutes. I basically these are 10 ml rollers. You can get them on many accessory places online. You can just pop the tops off with like a paper towel or using the cap. And then I put in, anywhere from 10 to 40 drops, depending on the recipe, of certain essential oils for whatever it is I need. Add the rest with a carrier oil, which is going to slow the absorption rate and ease up on any skin sensitivities for the direct essential oil, especially if it's a hot oil like peppermint. We want to burn our skin. And it also stretches the dollar. So like if you're getting a good quality peppermint, and there's 300 drops of peppermint in a bottle, a big bottle like this, I may only need, like this big peppermint bottle could be, let's just say, approximately $23, but I may only need 20 drops for my tummy roller. That's going to last me a month at least. And then I still have 160 drops left. So this bottle that I just got of peppermint is going to last me like over a year for making my tummy rollers and other stuff I could use it for. So it's not just for one thing. So that's just a couple of quick ideas there. Another important thing would be becoming and staying part of a like-minded community with people the best that you can. People that are going to support your ideas of wellness, and just maybe getting in a couple of Facebook groups, even people that are doing more healthful type things. Any questions? No? Okay, I will continue. So, but I truly, honestly believe that we can change the direction of the health of yourself and your family for the better just by committing a little time. We want to, yes.
What comes to my mind is, truly speaking, not so much even that what you say is totally true when you use natural essential oils and you start. It's more like bringing consciousness into everything what you live, how your attitude towards your life. You become aware of things, and that awareness changes a lot. That very awareness will change your lifestyle. And maybe chemicals will do it much less than that consciousness which you put into it. And then you start noticing things, you start observing things. You get into very interesting flow of life, which is not boring. You're not doing it for just keeping up healthy. It's a lifestyle. It's a curiosity of how we live, what is happening to us, where we interact with this outer world and ourselves. Where is that border? And that becomes a very interesting way of living. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. I mean, just the lifestyle of it, I hit a point where I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, because, the way I was doing things at one time, it was a norm, because that's what everybody just started doing. I remember when my mom brought home the first TV dinner when I was, I don't know, 9. It was exciting, and then when the microwave came in the house, I was like, wow, but never thought to start reading labels. Well, at that time, I don't think they were adding too much chemicals just yet. But yeah, but once you get into a lifestyle and a way of doing things, even exercise, I mean, committing is hard, but once you get past a certain point and then you try to take a couple days off, your body's like, what are you doing? I don't feel good if I miss too many days, and I get stiff and forget it. My back problems that I have. And also I have to just be honest with exercise, which is another huge factor. Just find something you like to do and commit to it. There is so much to choose from. If you don't go in person to a gym or a studio, online today, we have the streaming abilities. We have YouTube. I mean, it's endless, and there's so much stuff for free. And not that you wouldn't want to support anybody, but even just subscribing to a YouTube channel, for instance, you could be supporting somebody in that way. But yoga and meditation is the easiest and the sweetest on the body, in my opinion. There's all the hardcore good workouts out there, maybe a little bit when you're younger, but let me tell you, it does catch up with you after a while. And actually overworking out hard can actually cause stresses in the body and interfere with your gut microbiome as well. You really don't want to work out like push up, another one. It's really not good for your body in the long run. It can create other stressors. You want to work out where you're just the right place, and as soon as you feel like you've hit a point, then ease up a little bit. You want to get that heart rate up. So you definitely want to include cardiovascular for sure. Whether it's a brisk walk in nature, that's another great exercise recommendation, because we need to stay connected to nature. Okay. So this is really cool. Just one day of clean eating, because that's about where I want to get to now too, is the clean eating thing, because that's what we really need to concentrate on. So like, what should we be eating? Because poor digestion increases gut permeability and increases proteins in our bodies that they don't recognize. So just one day of clean eating, studies have shown, reduces the amount of pesticides that can be found in your urine. And I thought that was like, wow. So imagine if we adopt a lifestyle of cleaner eating on a regular basis, you know, we might be looking at reversing some problems that we may be having. And maybe I like to even think of it as preventative in a sense, because if we can, you know, if we're in a good place now, let's try to stay there. If we're in a bad place, let's try to see what we could do to reverse it and then maintain it. And the definition of clean eating, basically, like I said before, is eating whole foods in their natural organic state. They're meant to nourish our bodies. We don't want to have too much lab created, genetically modified food, because that's not what was intended for our bodies. And this, I should say, SAD, 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 standard American diet. So we want to try to be more as natural as possibly can. And if you don't like vegetables, find ones you like. There are so many amazing ways to cook vegetables now that, not now, but just if you put a little time into it. And that's another thing you can Google, fun ways to eat vegetables, or healthy ways to eat vegetables, or delicious ways. Just, a little bit of sauteing, a little bit of sesame oil, throw in some garlic and some spices, a little bit of salt. And I mean, you're still eating healthy, and, and you can make it taste good. You can. And I might at some point have some recipes I can share too. I do like to cook. So we want to do a diet rich in unprocessed, if we can, as much as possible, fresh fruits. We want to stay away from white flour products, sugar, artificial sweeteners, sweets and desserts as much as possible. Now, if you're making some of it yourself, you know what's going into it. Okay, some people will use applesauce instead of sugar. Stevia as an alternative to regular sugar. I don't care for the taste of stevia as often, so I won't use it as often. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of regular sugar. I'll just usually do a lot less than the actual recipe calls for, and still enjoy the desserts once in a while. But I know I only have 6 ingredients in there, including the eggs, not 15 if you want to buy their chocolate chip cookies. So definitely stay away from high fructose corn syrup, vegetable and corn oil. No good. Soybean oil. You want to think about stuff like olive oil, grapeseed oil, sesame oil. Those are healthier oils. I'm going to also share a link later on an article I did, a link to healthier eating on my website. Proteins. Average person only needs about 0.8 grams of proteins for an average of 165-pound person. So you want to consider, grass fed if at all possible, just because they're not being loaded with the chemicals. That's going to just be more stuff for our body. And if you're more of a vegetarian, or you want to think about some of the healthier type of things to eat, lentils, chickpeas, peanuts, almonds, chia, flaxseed, hemp, beans, edamames, lentils, for more of a plant-based soy, watch the source of soy, tofu, dark leafy greens are amazing for you, whole grains, and legumes. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, which I found out was very interesting, and it's called lectins, and it's something that you want to actually be aware of. And it's a sugar-binding plant protein that can contribute to leaky gut. But what it is it attaches to the cell membranes in your intestines, and basically it interferes with the absorption of the nutrients. But the thing is if it's uncooked. So you want to just avoid too much of a raw diet. If you eat too much raw food, it can actually be a little bit more taxing on your body to digest it properly and then do what it needs to do with it. It's just interesting how all this stuff works. It really is, because they had said at one time a completely raw food, the more raw food you can eat is good, but it is harder for your body to digest it. If you think about cows, I mean, they have that chew the cud thing going on, because they actually goes through 2 digestive systems, I believe, or something, but we don't have 2. So considering the lower lectin diet, which is like staying away from wheat, corn-fed meats. And I had mentioned earlier, casein A was another big thing that I had found out about that could be interfering. So, like more of an organic raw milk could be a better choice in that respect. I like almond milk. That works for me. But now if you're allergic to nuts, you might want to try an oat milk. That might be a little bit of another healthier choice. Okay, so high lectin foods, for instance, would be like peas, beans, whole grains, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants. But as long as they're cooked, fermented, or sprouted, then you have nothing to worry about in that respect. Are there any questions?
It's just, I don't see any in the Q&A box, but if any of the participants have a question, just let us know, and you can even,
Okay.
I think you're able to open your mic, and if not, Lisa will keep trucking.
All right, you got it. All right, and I think I did mention about the exercise and gut bacteria. Basically, it is very important because our bodies will convert food to energy through the chemical process. Like if we're doing an aerobic exercise, we'll work more efficiently, create more energy, and it'll help break down like the sugary stuff, sugary foods in our body, where it would store fat otherwise. So exercise and good gut bacteria definitely go hand in hand. It is almost like the yin to the yang of eating healthy is to exercise, a daily regimen of some kind of exercise. I'd say at least 4 days a week. And exercise also improves digestion elimination process. So like if you're somebody who might be even constipated all the time, we have to get moving to get things moving. So if we sit in a very sedentary, that's not going to help that department at all. And also meditation can do wonders for the gut microbiome, because when your body's at peace and at rest and you're in a different place, everything just, I can't explain it, but it does amazing things. It takes the stress away. And then your system is just not being shocked by all the stuff that's happening to it. So your environment, your relationships, all that does matter. And I know it's not always easy, but we do have to find ways to balance those as well. Okay, sleep. Again, it's just a little bit about sleep. And making sleep a priority, just as much as we should make our diet a priority. Think about what time are you going to sleep every night. Being consistent is important too, because if you're up till 2 a.m. one night and then, you go to bed at 9 o'clock, and the inconsistencies, your bodies can get confused, and that can throw off everything in your body system as well. Because when you're sleeping, you're repairing and restoring, including your gut. So a big recommendation would be turning off electronics as early as you can. TV, social media, your phone, put it on silence. I can't all the time. I still have college age kids coming and going, and they usually let us know when they're on their way, and I can't sleep until they're home. So that doesn't help, but you do what you have to for that. Just 1 minute. I just lost something here. A diffuser. I use a diffuser for sleep. And my sleep roller, like I was just talking about. I have the essential oils I'll use in there are lavender, vetiver, valor, patchouli. And what I have done is I have researched, I research oils to see what their components are, their constituents are, what they're made up of. And I recommend getting, this one is a quick reference guide for using essential oils. It's a little book. Life Science Publishers is one that I like, that they have a couple of reference guides. And this one is my favorite. I think Rade you might have had gotten this one, Essential Oil Desk Reference Guide. This has so much in here. It's like my holy grail here, because I can look up, okay, I need sleep. I look up sleep. It will list all of the oils recommended for sleep. And then you can look up that individual oil and find out what that essential oil can do. And it's usually not just sleep. It can help with digestion. It can help with, now you start to little by little learn, okay, so lavender, for instance, it's like a Swiss Army knife. Lavender is good for sleep. It's good for burns. It's good for digestion. It's good for nervousness. So you can, after some time, but you need support. And that's where I'll come in. But, you can Google stuff all day long. But
yeah, and I would say too, Lisa, I was just going to comment too, because this is just a tremendous amount of great information, and a lot of information. And I just wanted to remind the participants or anyone listening to this that all of this is also, most of this, or much of it will still also be contained in the articles that you've written, in the links that you're going to send out. So, I'm trying to remember this and write this down, and then it's like, no, wait, we're going to get these great resources. So
Yeah, I'm going to make sure
just to
everybody gets
remind.
an organized list of the resources that I was talking about, and then they'll get a good feel of the class based on, the toxins in the body, the chemicals to stay away from, and a few other articles, and then my personal information as well, if they want to learn a little bit
Now,
more.
we are getting pretty close to 7:30. I don't know where you are on your list and what can be put in resources or article links to them. Is there a couple other points that you want to make sure you get in?
I want to just do the quick application methods of how essential oils work. I think that would probably be good.
Maybe we can have another session on this because I don't want you to jam it and to.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I think that would be really good because there's so much to learn, and I get so excited about it, and I don't want to cram it. And if people want to pick up on part 2 from here, this would probably be the best place to pick up because we definitely covered a lot. Including then a little exercise and sleeping, which maybe I'll just wrap up with a few more sleep points since I was just right there. And then from there, it's all about how to use essential oils and the best way to implement them and benefit from them in your everyday lifestyle, as well as clean eating and diet and exercise.
And maybe you can say in the second round more about how to apply what oils and for what purposes, as you did earlier with us, but kind of develop this particular approach that we would have some practical suggestions how to proceed, how to make our life more conscious of things around us. So more practical applications. You covered the whole theory, the whole vision, and how you do it, and with some examples. But for us, more like dinacharya, like what we do during the day, what is suggested in the morning, in the evening, in the night, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. Certainly, because I probably could go to 8-ish. I had a feeling this could be a 2-hour, no problem. And because we're just a little past the halfway point now. And so I don't want it to be rushed. And I think it'd be wonderful if we can do another segment if our viewers are.
Let's do it then next.
I'll connect with you, Lisa, and then we'll figure out a date or an evening to do another half hour.
That sounds really good.
Okay.
That sounds really good.
Great.
Good.
Thank you, Lisa. It was wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'll send you for up to the point we're at now, the links that they would have needed for this segment, if you will. And then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa.
All right, thank you so much.
Take
It's been a pleasure. Okay.
Night.